All right. Good day, everyone. Yeah, I've got. I'll be with Fine. So we're together and representing Hot Books. And yeah, so Carl talked about truth. And you know, I noticed also on the sign it says 8:32. So that comes from the book of John, John 8:32, which says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." It's quite interesting that in verse 31 it talks about how that if you abide in Christ, that you'll be able to remain in His love. And so I do believe that everyone who's here today are here because we care about the truth. And we live in a world where truth has been distorted, and there are powers that are trying to manipulate the narrative and that are trying to force things in, not just to our children, but to us as well. The food industry and pretty much almost everything, you kind of have to suss it out and, like we have to read, we have to find out the truth for ourselves. Sadly, we are living in a day and age where you can't just take in everything. And so I was speaking to my good friend here before, and he said, question everything. And that's what I would say, question everything. Don't just suck it in. Read and study and do your own research. And I do believe wholeheartedly in what it says there in John 8:32, that we will know the truth, and it is that truth that will set us free. And so myself and Fine are on the radio. In fact, I'll get Fine to just share these little flyers out. If you've never heard of Faith FM. So now Faith FM, so myself and Fine are on the radio every Thursday. And what we do, we look at what's happening in the world, world trends, and then we try to say, what does the Bible have to say about this? Bible prophecy. We believe that Bible prophecy has a lot to tell us about what's happening today and what's about to break upon the world by surprise. And so highly encourage you to get the Faith FM up because unfortunately, once again, the powers that be have limited our radio license, and we are still on the, what they call it, the low power frequency. And so you will get to certain places whereby you won't be able to get us to get a clear, strong signal. But if you have the Faith FM up, you'll continue listening uninterrupted. And so we cover not only world events, we look at prophecy, we also look at health. It's quite sad that research is telling us that more and more people are becoming stressed today. And I can understand why, cost of living and many other things that are happening all around us. A lot of people are stressed. And so we believe in health. In fact, one of the classic books that I ever recommend in the areas of health is a book which we have here. In fact, I think it's been taken. But I highly recommend it. It's available online. It's called Ministry of Healing. Ministry of Healing. And the author is Ellen White. I highly recommend it. It's a reputable book, and it's been researched. And one that I highly recommend, Ministry of Healing. So we do cover health topics as well. But also, I want to talk about this book here, The Great Controversy. As I was chatting with my mate right here, he talked about the evil powers. I don't know if you believe in the evil powers that are out there, the forces. I do. And there is a controversy. And once again, in the Bible, in Ephesians chapter 6, it talks about how we wrestle with evil forces in the heavenly realms as well as here on earth. And so there are, the things that Carl just talked about is pure evil, isn't it? You would agree that that's pure evil. But there is an agency or a being, an evil power that is behind that. And so the book, The Great Controversy, looks at history from way back, our world today, and the future. And the Great Controversy kind of helps you to put everything together and gives you a framework of thought so that way you can understand and make sense of what's happening in our world today. So if there's a book that I highly recommend, definitely is The Great Controversy. And so there's many others. And all of these are free. Feel free to take as many as you love or as you like. So that is pretty much Freedom Books. And I invite my friend Fine. Come on, Fine. Come on. So we, myself and Fine, we look after the Seventh-day Adventist churches throughout the whole Southeast. And whenever there's an opportunity to present hot books, we got there. And so, so Fine, come on, share something with the people.
Look, I'm unsure how many of you maybe even come from a Christian background, and we like to dialogue and talk with people, and we like to question everything as well. This is my first time here, and when I heard about the group, I was just so encouraged that you actually have people who are enlightened and aware about what things are happening in the world today. And we're not the type of Christians who just kind of, digest everything and just accept it. But we do, on our show, we do look and examine about Bible prophecy. And I don't know how many of you have heard about Daniel chapter 2, about this image that this King Nebuchadnezzar had. Has anyone heard of that prophecy before? I just wanted to break it down for you just because I understand even the speaker that went before us, Carl, and many others, we're ministers and we just view things through Bible prophecy. And I just wanted to share with you just so that you kind of get a feel about where we are now and where we have been, but also where we're going. Because ultimately, I see that there, even with the hats with Trump in 2024 and what's happening in America, and I don't know whether you understand even about what the Bible says about the United States of America, but it does talk about it, but it all is founded upon Daniel chapter 2. And so I'm just going to break it down. This is not a religious talk, but hopefully you get an understanding just from a spiritual perspective. Is in Daniel chapter 2, it was a prophecy that King Nebuchadnezzar had. He was the king of Babylon, which is modern day Iraq. And he had this image, this dream of this image, which ultimately he didn't understand what the image was. And so there was a Hebrew captive named Daniel who was there. God had given him the revelation to kind of reveal what the image meant. And when you read Daniel chapter 2, it talks about these kingdoms that will rise and fall. And it began with the head of gold, which was Babylon. And ultimately, Nebuchadnezzar, he was one of the kings, the 7 kings of Babylon. He eventually, the last king was King Belshazzar. When they fell, even when you look in history, what was the next kingdom that came up? Medo-Persia.
And Persians.
Yeah. And Medes and the Persians, and you actually read them all in the book of Daniel. I'm just summarizing for you. But ultimately, after Medo-Persia fell, the 3rd kingdom was the kingdom of Greece. And you read about the king of Greece, Alexander the Great, in Daniel chapter 2 as well. And throughout the book of Daniel, after Greece, you had the kingdom of Rome. And ultimately, it comes down to the feet of iron and clay. And then after the iron and clay, it talks about this rock that hits the image. And ultimately, from the Bible, we know that the rock is Jesus. That's right. So you and I, we're actually living in the tippy toes of Earth's history. And the next climactic event is the second coming of Jesus. Now, I noticed that Fabiano, he mentioned about John 8:32 and how it says, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. When we often think of truth, we often think of it as a theory. But when you read the text, it says in verse 36, it says, if the Son, therefore, shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. He was talking about freedom from sin. Because at the foundation of it all, each of us may be in bondage to something that no one even knows about. And the thing is, the only one who can set you free from that is Jesus. But the thing is this, is that in the feet of iron and clay, because the legs represented Rome, in the feet of iron and clay, it's a mixture of Rome. In the Bible, clay represents ultimately the church in Isaiah 64:8. And so there's a mingling of church and state. Do we see that in America?
Church and state is quite strong right now. Like Christian nationalism is pushing things.
So before it was about making America great again, but now it's about making America pray again. Yeah, and there's a push, to bring Christianity back into the schools with the 10 Commandments and stuff like that. And I believe that America is a nation that was founded upon, freedoms. Many of the Christians who were fleeing persecution from Europe went there because they wanted to exercise freedom of religion, religious liberty, and we see some of that even in our country being impeded. And I follow ACL and what they do in the government, and with the, as was mentioned, the misinformation bill and the disinformation bill. And I'm saddened to even hear what happened with one of our Mr. Hood here in Mount Gambier, how he was trying to pass a bill on about late-term abortions. And I was saddened that they voted that down, because when I looked at that, it seemed like it was a compromise, because it wasn't taking away the freedom of women, but it was giving the baby a chance to live. And when I looked into that, I found that to be very disturbing, because I believe that God has given us freedom, but He also has given us life as well. And we shouldn't be able to. We're talking about innocent life, especially when they're born and they're viable. That even when they come out of the womb, they leave the baby just to die by itself. They're not allowed to comfort it. And it's sad, because you have many of these midwives even coming out of that, and they have traumatic experiences, and they take that with them. And there was a recent lady in Queensland who was sharing about that, and ultimately what they do, and I find it very disheartening and quite sick. But we believe that people should have the right to, but at the same time we believe in freedom as well. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because the thing is, we're living in the tippy toes of Earth's history. And the thing is, when you look at even the Vatican, a combination of church and state, that ultimately it's going to be existing on this earth to the second coming. But you see the interrelationship between them and America. I don't know if you've ever looked on the Supreme Court. They're the ones who make most of the decisions. Of the court justices on there, 7 out of the 9 of them are Roman Catholic. Now I understand that they're not supposed to kind of with their religion, they're supposed to keep that aside, but you see slowly how ultimately the United States of America and also the Roman Catholicism are coming together, and they're coming together for the common good. Yeah? And so if you ever get the opportunity, I know that our time is getting away from us, and I want to respect your time as well, but if you want to learn more about the United States and America, please come and speak with us, or even you can ask questions. We love to have dialogue. And even if your opinion, is opposite to ours, we're okay with that as well. But we like to question everything.
And lastly, before we finish, the prophecy of Daniel chapter 2, which Fine just referred to, is quite an interesting study, because today, I believe it was Carl who was talking about the fact that there are connections between some of the evils that we are witnessing today with the Vatican. And you find that there is movements like the Secret Society or the Jesuits. I don't know if you've ever heard. And so all these are systems and powers that are seeking to control, to manipulate, and to advance certain agendas. And so the study of Daniel chapter 2 and the successive chapters after that help us to realize the time in which we're living and the conflict and the warfare that is actually waging behind the scene. But the most important thing, though, is that when we're aware of all these things that are happening, it's the response that matters. So how are we going to react? How are we going to respond? And the message of the Bible is that, all of these things, all the powers that be, will not continue forever. There is a kingdom that is coming, which is typified in Daniel chapter 2 as a rock that comes from heaven, that is that comes and strikes at the feet of the statue, and the whole statue, which represents the kingdoms of the world, falls apart, but the rock becomes a huge mountain. So ultimately, the message of the Bible is that, hey, yes, these things will get worse and worse as we get closer to the end of time. In fact, that's one of the signs. But there is a better kingdom that is coming. And it is that we look forward to, and it is my prayer and hope that, we'll look into that, and especially Daniel chapter 2. And in fact, there's even another interesting story, if we had time, what happened during the Nazi period, of a gentleman who actually looked at Daniel chapter 2 And because of his conviction, he managed to persuade one of his generals, and they looked into it, and he got the scientists and the mathematicians to come and look at what he was presenting. It was pretty much a study on Daniel chapter 2. When they were all convinced, they decided that they would take extra resources and extra, whatever it is that they would need just in case Hitler failed when he went to invade Russia. And so when that failed, most of those successfully retreated and were able to come back to Germany because they believed in Daniel chapter 2. Because you see, Hitler wanted to rule. He had this ambition to say that he was going to establish a world peace. I think he called it a 1,000-year Reich. Yeah, I don't speak German, but you'd have to research that. But he wanted to pretty much establish an empire that will rule for, I think, 1,000 years. And interestingly, Bible prophecy had predicted that that won't happen. He wanted to unite Europe, just like many other previous emperors had tried as well. But that also failed. Why? Because Daniel chapter 2 predicts the succession of kingdoms and how things will progress. And you find that when you compare that prophecy to history, that everything has been exact as the Bible has foretold us. So once again, highly recommend looking at the book, The Great Controversy. If you have a question, please do chat with us. Thank you.